In the County of Kings, everyone goes hard. So when you go to a Nets game, do it right with an all-access membership. Get in on the Brooklyn Taste program, free beer and wine pregame, and never pay a dime for food at concession stands. Go hard. It's the Brooklyn way. Call 718-NETS-TICKS or visit brooklynnets.com/all-access.
This is the Michael Kay Show podcast. Listen live weekday afternoons from 3 to 7 p.m. on 98.7 ESPN and the Listen tab on the ESPN app.
The gang is split up, but we're together. I'm here in Toronto, where tonight the Yankees start a big 3-game set against the Toronto Blue Jays and live at Giant Camp. Don LaGreca and Peter Rosenberg. And we've got a show that I think this show is commensurate to eating chicken fingers in the suite at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
I think that by 7 o'clock, you will openly weep.
That good a show, huh?
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling, Peter.
It's 7 o'clock already. I want more.
Yeah. And then when you don't get more, you're going to weep.
That's right.
And another reason to weep, look at your watch, everybody. It's 3:03, and Peter's on the show. Wow, that's how big a show it is.
Oh, so big, in fact, that I've been here for 2 hours.
Yeah,
amazing.
For no reason.
Yeah,
Let me give you a little sniff of the guest list, okay?
Yeah, take it in.
We got the owner of the Giants, John Mara.
Oh, yeah.
3:30. We got the GM of the Giants, Jerry Reese.
Oh, okay.
We got the former Nick Great, Bob McAdoo, at 4:30.
No.
Ben McAdoo.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have Ben McAdoo.
Same
at
questions,
4:30.
though. You can ask him the exact same question.
Identical questions. We have at 5 o'clock the man who introduced us.
Yes.
Eli Manning, 5 o'clock.
Where's your Snapchat, Don?
That's right. 5:30, Landon Collins. Huh? How about that?
My guy.
And then we throw in a little Justin Pugh.
Which is important.
It's very important.
Because that's really it, right? I mean, if you're going to jump off on the Giants season, the only thing I would think that you're really apprehensive about to be all in on this being a playoff team or a team that could compete for a championship is that offensive line, right? So
that's right.
Why not get a member of that offensive line? Because they really didn't make any necessary they made some improvements here and there, but it's still, I think, the weak link in the chain that I think Giant fans are concerned about.
Now, the Giants are always super, super great with us. We are not their flagship station, but when we come to camp, they give us the big guest. But it looks like, as of now, we're not getting Brandon Marshall because I guess what they're trying to do, piggybacking on what Sheldon Richardson said about Brandon Marshall yesterday, they're trying to avoid a little bit of a spit storm. So they're not going to. I tune in. Maybe it could change. It doesn't look like we're going to get Brandon Marshall.
I guess I get it to a certain extent because it should be about football and it shouldn't be about a he said situation. But if I were Brandon Marshall, I'd like to retort. I mean,
he was doing some cryptic Twitter responses yesterday, but not much.
I mean, if I was accused of basically not being a team player, only caring about myself, that I quit on the team, I would definitely want to respond to that, and we'll see if that's a manifestation of just being a part of the media. Was there a jealousy? Because I think there's two sides to every story, and I thought Sheldon Richardson was very forthright. It was great with his information, but I would think the retort would be, well, maybe you guys are just jealous that I was doing other things, that it wasn't just about football. Because we had heard during the season, this is what's interesting, that it wasn't a distraction, that it wasn't a problem. We knew that he and Richardson had those issues and had those problems, but a lot of that information didn't come out until after the season was already over. So I'd be interested to see what Marshall's side of it is.
You know what's amazing here is that I'm reading the article by Rich Cimini on ESPN.com. That man knows what he did to the locker room, Richardson said Monday on the Michael Kay Show. Can you believe that?
Sometimes that's not the way it is, but Rich knows what he's doing.
But then also, a guy I love, Brian Costello, writes for the Post, just says, on his story, Sheldon Richardson said on the Michael Kay Show. It would be like me quoting one of his stories and saying, Brian Costello said in a column, but don't mention the New York Post.
No. Wait, hold on. You're complaining that he didn't say the station?
Of course. The Michael Kay Show, what does that mean?
That's what I hate to be a me guy. It is most important we get Michael Kay Show in there. Because if you had to choose, would you rather have him say it was said on ESPN or was said on the Michael Kay Show? We need the Kay Show.
Got to have both. I don't think it's.
Well, you like to have both, but there's only a certain amount of room that they have.
Here's the difference. Here's the difference. If you Google the Michael Kay Show,
right,
you will find we're on ESPN.
Yeah,
if you
because
Google
somebody who's reading that is
well, just hear me out.
That.
If you Google ESPN, you will not find the Michael Kay Show.
Or you will, but you'll find other shows that it
I'll
also
say
could
there
have
might
been
be a
set
few
up.
other things first.
Point is, it was said. It's interesting conversation, and
do you feel a different energy here, Don? Just like showing up here versus Jets camp. Can you sense the level of positive energy when we first showed up?
Well, you know what's I tweeted it out last night. I don't know if you saw the tweet, just about how listen, the Jets are not going to have a great season. It's just a matter of how bad the season's going to be. I think there could be fun time. They're not a playoff team. I mean, I understand where coach is saying we're trying to win a Super Bowl. You got to say that. You're the coach, and you don't want to lose the team. I mean, it's important to keep a locker room, but I don't think there's a lot of expectations around the Jets. There's expectations around the Giants, but I thought there was a confidence. I thought the players that we talked to had a lot of fun. They know that there's still football to be played. There's a lot on the line, even though it may not be a playoff team. So when you talk about the vibe, the difference in the vibe, Michael, to me, is that clearly one team has more of a realistic chance to make the playoffs than the other. But I think we'll find out once we talk to all the players here. But I don't think the vibe is that dissimilar. I think that the Jets players that we talk to are looking forward to trying to be the best that they can be.
Here's the question.
I mean, the difference in the vibe is one's delusional, one's realistic.
Thank you. And that's a very good point.
Well, you're supposed to feel good about things, but when Todd Bowles says that he wouldn't be satisfied unless they win a Super Bowl, well, let me tell you something, Todd. You're not going to be satisfied this year.
But I understand that when you've got a bunch of kids in the room, the last thing you want to do is tell them that they have no shot. And if you're going to say that you have a shot, you might as well own that. I think fans are intelligent enough that they understand that the coach is going to have a certain feel to it. So, yeah, no coach is ever going to come on and say, listen, we're going to be 1-15. I'm preparing my team for it.
There's a difference from that. I mean, I get it. You're never going to say that. I understand that, but there's the other extreme too. What are you going to try? You're going to win a Super Bowl. I mean, you're not winning a Super Bowl. You're not making the playoffs.
Well, what about this? How about you approach it at least in a way where you say, we know everyone thinks we stink. We know that. We get it. We've seen it. But don't ignore it. Don't live in a bubble where you're going, we have say, the world thinks we stink, and we're going to prove people wrong. I can't wait for you to see what this team does. We've got a lot more than people think. I would respect that more than acting like, we're just going into a season like everybody else, just trying to contend for a Super Bowl championship. Well, it's not realistic.
But you don't have a lot of veterans in that room. I mean, we're talking to Sheldon Richardson, who was drafted by John Idzik. All right? It wasn't like it was 100 years ago. Who's now a veteran on that team.
Right.
So when you got a bunch of kids, it's like you're in a classroom. You don't go, even if you've got a classroom of kids that you know that they're not going to get straight A's, the idea is, hey, I want to prepare these guys to maybe eventually become honor students. And that's the goal, and that's what we're trying to do here, even though deep down you know that that's an impossibility. You want to let those kids know that, hey, I want you preparing to go out there to win every game that you're going to play and try to win the Super Bowl. We're not going to win, because when you say that to kids, Michael, I think then the human nature is going to be to not give your all and not try as hard because, what does it matter? We're only going to go 2-14. I'll kill myself. I'll work my tail off next year when the expectations are different. So I can understand a coach.
It does turn into a negative, though, in my opinion, and they already made this mistake once last year, so if they don't make it again, of if you decide that Josh McCown should be your quarterback because he's playing slightly better than Bryce Petty. That's a mistake.
It's a huge mistake.
He has to be significant. He has to be much, much better. He has to be a much, much better player where you wouldn't start one of the kids.
Well, I said it to him. Don't you think it would be a disaster if neither of these two kids can beat out a 38-year-old journeyman quarterback? That means that you wasted a fourth and a second round pick.
But I got to tell you, I'm siding with Peter here. I don't care if they beat them out. I mean, they're probably not going to beat out a guy who knows systems and things like that. But this is a season of growth for the Jets. We've all said it. They want to get young. Let these kids play. What good does it do to have Josh McCown play? And also, losing Enunwa, how are you going to judge? How are you going to accurately judge Hackenberg and Petty when they don't have anybody of any kind of veteran status to throw to? That was a big injury.
But don't you think, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but because it's just words, I get it, but if you don't give the impression to Petty and Hackenberg that there's a competition, then there could be laziness that creeps. You want them to think that, hey, you got to be on your best. I'm not Christian.
They've got to be self-starters, though.
No, I understand that, but also you don't want Christian Hackenberg, and it doesn't look like this is the case because we talked to him. It seems like he's a good kid with a good head on his shoulders, or even Bryce Petty, who we know a little bit more, is to make Christian Hackenberg think, well, I'm a second-round pick. They're going to want me to be the starting quarterback. They'd have egg all over their face in McCown, so I don't really necessarily have to work that hard. They're going to give it to me. No, I want him to think that there is a possibility that he could lose this job. So they're grown-ups.
Would you agree if Josh McCown's the starting quarterback for the opener, that it was an epic fail?
Well, I won't say the opener of the season, just because Hackenberg is so raw that it's possible that he may not be ready. But if we get to week 3, 4, 5, and you're telling me that this kid can't take the job from a 38-year-old, then that's a major problem. So I won't say opening day. Would you say opening day, Peter? Because I think there's a lot of work that Hackenberg needs to do. But if we fast forward to December,
what was he doing last year?
Well, last year he wasn't working with the number ones. You heard him say he wasn't even playing at all.
Some people say you teach kids to swim by throwing them in the deep end.
I would hope that they have a kid. They have one of the two starting opening day. If they go to training camp, I'd hope they'd be ready.
I would hope. You're right. I would hope. I mean, I won't kill them because then in week 2, if he's playing, then that's fine. But the design is going to be that you want your picks to play, and Petty played a couple of games in the NFL. So, and you were talking about Josh McCown. Not only is he 38 years old, but he really hasn't. This is not Brett Favre at 38 years old. Okay, this isn't Peyton Manning at 38 years old. This is a journeyman quarterback. He was a journeyman when he was 26. So no, obviously he has to win this job. They both have to. And you know what? Just to save face, if Hackenberg didn't win the job, then Petty be the guy. Anybody that
it doesn't matter anyway
McCown.
Because they want Sam Darnold to be the guy next year.
If he comes out,
but there's other guys that'll come out. Today's opening hour of the Michael Kay Show on 98.7 ESPN, brought to you by Firestone Complete Auto Care, keeping cars running newer, longer, whatever you drive a Firestone now. As you can see behind me, if you're watching in the simulcast I'm at Rogers Center. Yankees against the Blue Jays tonight, so we're waiting on the lineup to see if Gary Sanchez is in the lineup. Yankees were very early today at about 1 o'clock taking early batting practice. A positive thing for the Yankees is that both Greg Bird and Starlin Castro were actually in the cage taking BP. So as soon as we have any information on what the Yankee lineup is, which is going to be very telling if, in fact, they start Romine for the third straight game, we will get that to you as soon as possible. The Michael Kay Show on 98.7 ESPN, brought to you by Q8 Car Rental. Do you want to be an Uber driver? Well, call Q8 Car Rental in Queens, where you can win a free Uber-ready car rental for a week, 2 weeks, or even a month. Call 718-956-1234. Now, the guys are at Giant Camp today, and it's a different vibe there because this is a vibe of expectations, not about promise. You know, the Jets are hoping that they're building something that will be strong and good down the line. The Giants are at that point where they built something strong and good. And you'd have to admit, this is a team that's defense is very stout, very, very good, maybe even gotten better from last year. This is a team that has great weapons for Eli Manning, a quarterback that's won 2 Super Bowls. And this is a team whose one big question would have to be, do they have enough of an offensive line? And if the offensive line, which is more or less coming back what it was last year, there's an addition like DJ Fluker, but if they're better than they were last year and they do protect Eli, this team has a chance to win a Super Bowl.
Well, especially with Marshall, because last year they were 11-5 with an inept offense that just couldn't do anything. And now they've added a legitimate wide receiver who's big, who is a big target, that could be huge in the red zone, that could be huge when a defensive back is draped over him, that could be huge as a hot receiver when the blitz is coming and Eli can't go through his progressions. Beckham's another year older. Sterling Shepard's another year older. They actually have a legitimate tight end, maybe 2 tight end sets, which was unheard of for years because the Giants couldn't keep anybody healthy. They just couldn't get any tight ends that could hold on to the ball. Hopefully a healthy running game with Vereen coming back. So, hey, you went 11-5 with an inept offense. Even if this offense is average and the defense is going to do what they did last year, Michael, now we're talking maybe 13-3. We're talking winning the division. We're talking a bye. So that's the kind of expectations I think the Giants have. Now, will the defense take a step back? Will Eli, as he starts to get older, begin to fail? I mean, these are things we're going to have to wait and see. But ineptitude on offense still led to 11 wins. Now they shouldn't be inept on offense, and now the sky could be the limit.
Well, the offensive line, again, is Eric Flowers going to improve enough at left tackle to protect Eli's blind side? Is the running game good enough so that you just can't play the pass all the time? I mean, they have so many weapons in the passing game. And an offense that Eli is very, very comfortable in because he's been with McAdoo now 4 years. So all the ducks are in a row. I mean, you never know about injuries or things like that. But the big question mark, because there's only so much money to spend on an NFL team, is this offensive line going to be good enough? You know, we'll talk to Justin Pugh later on, and we'll ask him these questions. We'll talk to Ben McAdoo as well. So it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a fun year for the Giants. It's going to be an interesting year for the Jets. It's also Ticket Tuesday here on 98.7 ESPN. Be listening in the 5 p.m. hour when we give you the chance to win 2 field-level tickets to an upcoming Mets game, courtesy of Papa John's. Papa John's, proud partner of the New York Mets. 1-800-919-3776. We'll take some phone calls as well as we move along. Why don't we start with Tri-State Buick GMC listener hotline, and we'll start it off with Lenny in Amityville. Lenny. Hello, Lenny.
Hello, how are you doing over there, Mr. K Show?
Good. How are you doing?
You guys are doing well. I called about the Jets, and, last season they got off to a bad start because their quarterback held out, which is why they went into that little streak at the beginning. And if you don't win at the beginning, you downgrade yourself in confidence. But I think this year, these kids that I was listening to yesterday on your program, they got a lot of enthusiasm. They think they're walking into the pro. They might have a wake-up call, but they're going to be there. They sound like very educated football players that want to play the game to win. And I think Bowles is the coach to hold them on to it.
No, listen, I'll tell you what, I don't disagree with you. And one of the things that I came away with yesterday was thinking about, though I am bummed out if I'm a Jets fan about this season, when I heard Jamal Adams and Darren Lee, I'm excited about the future. I really would feel that way. And I will tell you, one of the many ways that I was not, in love with our Mike McCagnon conversation was that when I gave him the layup question of, would you love to have a future with Todd Bowles? He didn't really give me a conclusive answer that, yes, we would.
Well, we're still waiting on a conclusive answer from him.
Yeah, from anything. But right. I understand what the caller's saying. I really do think you have young talent that's great, and you have a very respected head coach who is clearly a guy who knows this game.
I don't buy the bad start last year because of a holdout. The guy was there the year before. He wasn't caught behind the 8 ball. He knew everything that was going on.
Oh, and he signed the day camp started, so
right.
He might have been.
That's wrong.
And as a veteran, I'm not going to make excuses there. And I think that this team is not going to be good offensively, but defensively, Michael, there's some talent there. There really is, and it would be devastating for this team to lose games 35-31 because then that meant that the defense didn't play well. You lose games 14-3, 17-10. Hey, that makes sense. Defense plays solid, but the offense can't get it done. But on the defensive side, there's some names there. I think
the defense could be good.
Yeah, I mean, is it going to be great? No, but I think it's going to be solid. They shouldn't lose games because of defense. They should be winning some games because of defense, and hopefully the offense gets better as things go on. It's a quarterback's league, so you got to find a quarterback. But, the idea 0-16, 1-15, I think this team will win a few games. And as a Jet fan, if you're watching, the wins will be happy times because they're going to be unexpected. And maybe they pull out a couple of more than you thought. But I think this defense is actually too good for them to be, an 0-16, 1-15 football team unless there's catastrophic injury. The biggest names on the team are all on the defensive side of the ball.
Steve in Bayport. Steve.
All right, Steve's not there, but one of the things he wanted to know, what you said, how are you supposed to evaluate quarterbacks when they don't have any receivers to throw to?
How do you know he said that?
Because they give you a little idea what the calls are going to be about.
that thing. God,
and actually I can read minds, and I can't believe you're thinking that about me right now.
I think very highly of you, Don.
But we're not infants. I mean, these are professionals that I think can grade the ability of players beyond stats. I mean, if you think that Christian Hackenberg, let's look at his stat line. He completed, 30% of his passes for 90 yards. He stinks. I mean, no, you're going to evaluate it based on what's his footwork like. Did he go through his progressions? Did he throw where he was supposed to throw the football? I understand Enunwa losing him may make it more difficult to evaluate the quarterback. But don't you think that these guys should be able to know if a quarterback did a good job or not, just not base it on stats?
But one thing, okay, you should be able to know, but then the quarterback is going to lose confidence when there aren't people open to throw to. I think it's going to be difficult for young players to actually do well if there's not real talent at the wide receiver
But you
position.
have to know as a quarterback, you're a leader of the team. You're the one that directs the offense. I mean, you can't go into your room and be upset with your stat line. If you want to be a quarterback in the National Football League, you got to understand that. You can't have your confidence broken. I mean, these guys have to know that the offense is going to be limited. They have to know that there's not that many great receivers to throw the football to. But I will tell you this: they're going to be guys out there that some of them were pretty high draft picks that are busted to try to make it in this league. So the effort is going to be there. But I think these quarterbacks have to know that it's not going to be able to click if you have so much inexperience on the offense.
I get it, but these are young quarterbacks. You're talking about veteran guys that shouldn't feel like that. These are young quarterbacks. I don't think Josh McCown will feel like that.
No.
But the other two might. Hey, we have a fantasy football convention, and it's a good one. Saturday, August 27th, it starts at noon. It's at Resorts World Casino in Queens, and it features fantasy football's biggest star, Matthew Berry, along with Stefania Bell, Dave Rothenberg, Anita Marks, Alan Hahn, Rick DiPietro, and Chris Canty. They'll all get you prepped, primed, and ready for the upcoming season with all of the information that you need to win your league. Now, 98.7 ESPN is giving away a 4-pack of tickets per hour today through August 23rd. We're going to do it right now. Be the second caller at 1-800-919-3776. You get the 4-pack. Now, you have to be 21 and over to enter. It's all brought to you by Hooters NYC, Security Dodge, Fireball Whiskey, Premio Sausage, SeatGeek, and Resorts World Casino. Now, to book your league's draft at the 98.7 ESPN Fantasy Convention, head to 987fantasy.com. So yesterday we were at Jet Camp. Today we're at Giant Camp, and probably the most fun, entertaining interview that we had at Jet Camp was Sheldon Richardson absolutely going off on Brandon Marshall.
Oh, yeah.
Saying he quit, bad guy, all that. Well, Rich Cimini just tweeted this out, and I wonder what this is about. And I'll read it verbatim. Jets coach Todd Bowles reacted angrily to questions about Sheldon Richardson's latest criticism of Brandon Marshall. Quote, "I don't have time for the BS," he said. Bowles said he has discussed it with Richardson and the team. When pressed, Bowles bristled and threatened to end his post-practice news conference. What would he be so upset about? Marshall doesn't play for him anymore.
I don't know. I mean, you want to defend your guy, but
your guy is Sheldon Richardson.
But you're right. That's what I mean. I get. But what I'm saying is, I guess he doesn't want to make it a big thing. It's last year, because that's been the theme even here. Is that last year didn't happen. It's all about this year. But one of your leaders on the team made a bold statement about a guy, and I don't know why you have to bristle. I mean, just say, listen, this doesn't interest me. It's a new year, but to threaten.
Maybe it's a reflect. Maybe he looks at it as a reflection on him that a guy quit and he didn't know it.
You know, I was just having a conversation.
Stop it.
I was just having a conversation off the air with Andrew about that, because that was by far the best interview we did yesterday. There were many, many good interviews, but Sheldon was terrific. And I don't think Sheldon's BS, but it's also how he perceives things to be, because from my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, that's the only Jet from last year that has anything to say about Marshall, right? And I've been around that team doing the pre and post, and all year it was what a great leader he is and what a great teammate he was.
Good point, Don.
So he's kind of by himself here. Now, I'm not saying he's lying, but he perceives something that isn't necessarily the case to the rest of the team. And you're right, it is a reflection on Bowles that if one of his team leaders quit.
Well, you bring up a good point about what other people say, and boy, this is kind of damning us as well. When you have a sports talk show, football's so popular, you're going to go to the camps. Most of the time, the coaches say nothing, the GMs say nothing. I mean, it's all practice pablum nonsense. And Sheldon Richardson was a breath of fresh air because you really believed that he was saying what he felt. Other people say what they think that they should say. And I think maybe that made him bristle. I'm not quite sure. And I came into yesterday not being a big Sheldon Richardson fan. What he did in that car, driving as fast as he did with a kid, it bothered me. It bothered me. I don't think that's a responsible thing to do, but he didn't shy away from that. In fact, he brought that up several times, which showed me that he's ready to attack. And he also brought up a good point. He said, what I say about Brandon Marshall, people just dismiss it because, it's the bad guy, the criminal. I mean, he said those words.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't take him seriously because of his past transgressions. But I thought he brought up some good points. And to this point, I keep looking at Twitter, all the people that cover the Giants. I don't think that Brandon Marshall has addressed it. Those are some pretty heavy-handed comments. I think it should be addressed.
No, I don't think he's lying, Peter, but I do think he may be perceiving it differently than the rest of the team perceived it.
You said it's not. You don't think he's lying, but it's not that he's not lying. He could be seeing his own version of it.
I don't think he's lying at all.
No. The way he sees it, but he was pretty direct about this, Don. It's not just about perception. He said Brandon knows what he did, and he knows that this team knows what he did.
Right.
So it is interesting. Like we have never heard about that. There is always the possibility, and maybe Brandon will speak to it himself, that other players on that team didn't feel that it was something they could step up to say about a veteran like Brandon Marshall.
It's possible, but again, being around the Jets, Michael, I heard zero about anything negative from Brandon Marshall, with the exception of Richardson and he getting into it and then it really coming out. So it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It would just be odd that he seems to be the only one that has addressed it to that point.
I care less about what he said about Brandon Marshall and more about how nice it was to have one fully genuine conversation.
Right. And you just don't have it in football.
No, and listen, and by the way, that's not a shot at all. Like Jamal Adams and Darren Lee gave us great interviews, and they spoke as much as they could in the way a second-year player can speak. But everyone else, you can have good interviews, but everyone in football is so polished. They will not say a word. Sheldon didn't say anything terrible. He was honest about his own life. You may not like what he said about Brandon Marshall, but we talked to a person who just talked. And that was nice. Like, it was in 2 days, we'll see how many times we get someone who just comfortably talks. So I appreciated that.
Couple of things. I gave you the Yankee lineup earlier. So Gary Sanchez is behind the plate again after sitting out for 2 behind the plate. He was a DH in one of the games. And now on a personal note, it just came across that Glenn Campbell died at the age of 81 after, I guess, about a 5 or 6 year battle with Alzheimer's disease. It has to stop. The government and people of wealth have to get involved. There has to be more research. There are so many people and so many families that will be affected by this. And the last year of an Alzheimer's patient's life wears down the people that are not sick. I am telling you. My sister and I went through it with my mom. It is a debilitating disease. There has to be some kind of a force that could make this stop. It is just an awful, insidious disease. I had read somewhere that every 12 seconds in the world, somebody else gets Alzheimer's disease. Please, write to your congressman. Write to the people in power. The government has to get involved and fund more research for this insidious disease that is touching so many more people because people are living longer. So Glenn Campbell, he passes away, actually did a tour after he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and wrote a song
about Alzheimer's.
Essentially was his obit.
Yeah, the song is one of the most touching things I've ever heard in music. I didn't see the film.
I think it's called A Better Place, the song.
And it's from the film, the documentary about his life and how he was, obviously quite honestly losing it. I mean, that's what all my grandmother had Alzheimer's as well, and as he was losing it, they did this doc about it, and it's about kind of the love story with him and his wife, who he's not going to be able to remember anymore. And it's a really touching song and story. But yeah, rest in peace. That's really sad.
Really, let's get to it, everybody. Too many people. Too many people. We're losing great people. We're losing family, moms, dads. We're losing too many people by this disease. Do something. Do something. Write, call, whatever.
Thanks for listening to the Michael Kay Show podcast. Don't miss the guys weekday afternoons from 3 to 7 p.m. on 98.7 ESPN and on the Listen tab of the ESPN app.